I support Ron Paul because he believes in the Constitution, and he believes in the rights of the individual. He will give the power back to the states and take it away from the federal government. And by the states, that is the people. So he believes in restoring the rights to the people to decide what our government should be, and on a state level we have a lot more control over what our governments would be. Here lately they've been trying to smear Dr. Paul, talking about his racist newsletters or the racist comments that they have found in some of his newsletters, and they've said he has used contradictory terms and answers and saying and explaining them. Well, they're from different quotes from different newsletters, and in some of them he has said he was responding to a report that he read about 95% of black males being in Washington, D.C. being in Correctional Institute. And so actually the quote that they had said they used from him wasn't actually what he had said, but that was the direct quote from the report that he had cited. Now, he didn't acknowledge not being a part of writing that, and so that was one of the times that he had, that's how he explained that one way. And some of the others, and they're different quotes if you look at the ones they asked him about. And some of the others he has said he didn't know they were in there, he didn't read them until 10 years after they were out, and basically that they weren't his views and that he didn't write them at all. So he wasn't contradicting himself. They were asking him about different things. My thing is that he had 3 newsletters that spanned 22 years. Now, over that time, how many racist rants came out of them newsletters? You're talking thousands of newsletters that came out, and they found a few racial slurs in some of them. And if you notice, they weren't coming out of the financial report, which is the one he has been cited as saying that was what he had the most part in, because that's what his expertise was in. The survival report, and I forget the name of the other one, were mostly wrote by ghostwriters and different people over the span of 22 years. And so he probably should have paid a closer eye on what was actually coming out of him, but I don't think he wrote them. And like I said, if his views were such that of a racist, that they would be filled with racial slurs and comments. Plus, while he was being, a doctor for the 4 years there, when some of them came out, there's no way he would have had time to have even wrote everything in those newsletters that were weekly, and also run a successful, doctor's office. So I think that the charges are dumb, and anybody that's seen him speak and how consistent he's been over since he's been in Congress for 30 years, no one is coming forward and saying they ever heard him say that or that's his point of view. And when you listen to him, if you research him, that is not his point of view. He's not a racist. Another thing that I would like to add about it is that for a lot of his positions on a lot of things, he's been criticized for being crazy or a nut for 30 years. Now, he didn't change his position on those. He kept right on believing that, even when he was the only man in Congress voting a certain way, he stuck with it. He's always constantly voted for the way he felt where the Constitution would be at in that society he took. And he's took a lot of flack for that. So why on this, if this was a belief, a moral principle that he had, this racism, why would he back off it? Why wouldn't he stand on that and try to explain that away and be called a nut for doing that? Because he's done that with everything else. He didn't have any problems. He's never flip-flopped on issues. He's never changed his opinion even when it wasn't popular. So if he had been a racist, I think he'd be up there explaining why it's okay to be a racist. He wouldn't flip-flop on it and change. So I simply don't believe that man is a racist, and I think if everybody gives him a fair chance and looks into his policies and looks what he's been saying for 30 years, you'll come to the same conclusion I did, and that he must not have wrote them, because he's simply not a racist. And I implore everybody to look into him. Don't just blindly vote for him, or don't just blindly vote for anybody. Look into all the candidates. See who you honestly feel has the answers to fix our economy situation and the trouble we're in. We're heading to bankruptcy. Our country's in as bad as places I think it's ever been, and baddest place it's ever been in my lifetime at least. And he seems to be the only one that has a solution, that is acknowledging that we have a problem, and what caused the problem. And no one else even wants to touch it. I think the consensus is that this housing bubble led us to where we're at, which he predicted was going to happen. My question is it seems to me that if the question was posed to the other candidates besides Ron Paul, if you could go back and do it again, would they sign the bailout? Would they bail out these lending institutions? And I think we all know the question to that. They would. They're not criticizing the signing of the bailout. Ron Paul's the only one saying that that was a bad idea and that the American people got hosed, that the average American citizen got the short end of that stick. He's the only one that's defending our side of it. And I know most Americans agree, and as I do and feel on that situation, that we did get the short end of the stick. And so why aren't these other congressmen coming out and saying that? Why aren't they criticizing that? How the unfairness that government has played in this and how they have bent over backward for the big guy or the rich, but the poor and the middle class, they haven't done anything for. He seems to be the only one doing that. And, you know, on this whole war with Iran thing, I mean, he would go to war with Iran if they were a threat to our national security. In fact, if you watch that video where he walked out on CNN, the uncut version, she actually asked him about that, and he said he would if Congress felt that it was a threat to national security and there was a declaration of war, then he would go to war with them, even if it was just that Israel was threatened, and that was going to be a threat to our national security. He said he would go to war. So he's not afraid of war. He just doesn't want to see him do another police action like with Benyon, and I don't either. I mean, for one, we can't even afford it. So it seems like diplomacy should be heavily considered and pushed because we can't afford another war. So only in dire circumstances should we even consider war, and there would have to be 100% proof. But I have no doubt that if there was proof that there was an imminent attack on us or on Israel, and we found that Israel getting attacked was going to be a threat to our security, military action would be used. But it wouldn't be this little half-assed like we've been doing. It would be a full-on declaration of war, and we would go in to win and get it over with and come home. We would have a clear plan of what we were going to do, who the enemy was. It wouldn't be like this war on terror to where basically it's not even a country, it's an action. So we were at war with every country all the time because there could be terrorists in any country. And so basically we are at war with any Muslim country or any country that has Muslim population that could possibly be, you know, signing on to Al-Qaeda or any of the other terrorist organizations. So I think it would be quite a bit different than what we're used to, and I think a lot of people are afraid because it's like we got a king, and we've come to see the president as a king. And if you have a king, then there's fights between both sides trying to get their king to rule in a way that they want him to rule. And Ron Paul doesn't approach it like that. He doesn't see it like that. So being as he don't see it like that, we have less to fear from a Ron Paul presidency because he's going to restore rights back to the people. So we'll have more of a voice then than we have right now in the affairs. And even his stance on abolishing the Fed and his stance on Social Security and all that, and he realizes that, especially with Social Security, that there's a lot of people that need that. And his stance ain't just that he's going to cut it out, it's that he's going to gradually try to wean it out and establish programs through the free market that people can take care of themselves, because as it is, our government, the way it's set up, is we have created a bunch of people that is totally dependent upon the government, which puts us basically in a position of some kind of serf, and they're a king. And so he heavily believes in, the ability of people to take care of themselves and establishing things to do that. And until that was established, and this would be the movement of the people, then these organizations could start being weaned. We could be weaned off of them, and they'd be cut out. But it's not like people are going to wake up if he's president and just not have Social Security. And I think if you really look into what he says on the things, and not just what the mainstream media says, because what they do is ridiculous, how they twist things and cut things and only ask him questions about the stuff they think is going to lose in votes. They never ask him about immigration or any of these other main issues that are important to Americans. They only ask him about the war with Iran because they think that's going to lose in votes. So pretty much you got to get on YouTube, you got to search Ron Paul through other means, because mainstream media is not being fair about it. So, and I think if you do that, if you honestly see what he has to say about it entirely, you realize that it's really not that extreme. And if you think about it, I mean, the ideas of balancing the budget, only makes sense. We do it every day in our lives as Americans. We can't spend above our means, or we all know we end up in bankruptcy. But yet, for some reason, our government, for how many years now, has been spending more money than they're collecting in taxes. And you keep borrowing money over and above your income, and eventually that's going to catch up with you, and that's where we're at right now. And they just keep printing money out of thin air, and then it deflates the value of our dollar. So, I mean, that won't work. It wouldn't work for your household. It wouldn't work for mine. It ain't going to work for anybody. Nobody can spend more money than what they're bringing in income, or we end up in bankruptcy. And I don't know why the other the other candidates can't see that, because, I mean, it's the only mature thing. Every mature person knows that you can't spend more money than what you are bringing in income. So he's not extreme on that at all. Even if these programs that have to go, well, they're nice to have. But if you can't afford them and they're bankrupting your company, you got to come out. I mean, it's just like when we lose our job and have to go get a job that makes less money, if our living expense, we have to prioritize and cut certain things out, because bankruptcy is not much of an option, especially for our country. So there needs to be more responsibility at the top, and I think Dr. Paul would be more responsible than what we've had, and I think he would be the best president of my lifetime. And the main thing is giving the power back to the people. I mean, whatever happened from that point would be up to the people, and in what we did on a state level and the legislation that we were able to push through. And so our success, I think, we would be a lot able to be more successful. Alright, well, I realize we're in long enough, and I thank you if you watched it to this point. And like I said, I urge you to please look into all the candidates and their issues, and don't just not vote for Ron Paul on certain issues and vote for somebody else. If you support somebody else and you support their issues, then it's a free country, and you should vote for them. If not, then find somebody that you support to vote for. Because, and I know I'm voting for Ron Paul, even if I have to write him in, because the other ones, they believe in a tyrannous big government that just takes away more rights, and they just signed in the new defense bill, and I ain't gonna, well, it's a long ways from what the forefathers intended, and I wish, I mean, it's my goal to get whoever in office we can to give us back our freedoms and our liberty, and to abolish that. So, and Ron Paul's the only one even talking about that. None of the other candidates are even mentioning to the people that now we can be arrested for being deemed a terrorist, and we don't get a lawyer. We can be detained indefinitely. I mean, it's a really scary thing. It's not something that a free society should have in place. Like, presidents should not have that much power. But anyway, please, like I said, just research it. Research the candidates. Don't trust the mainstream media. They ain't going to tell you the truth. If you want to find the answers, you're going to have to look for yourselves, which I think we all should do. If we're going to pick a president, we should know how they stand. So, thank you for watching.